So last time we did one of these, actually there was a lot of demand for a couple more in-depth things, in-depth things like that. Turns out there's a lot of demand for guides for Mordekaiser Jungle. All right, who'da thunk it? So in this part 2, I'm gonna go over a few things that I missed in the first one. So for example, I forgot to mention that you need to Parmavan Vayne. And given that right now Rengar has risen in popularity, you need to be careful and actually consider whether it's not worth your while to ban Rengar instead, because Rengar, with his empowered battle roar, is actually capable of completely negating your suppression, just like with Gangplank Oranges. So there are also games where you want to make sure that you have a champion that's not Mordekaiser that you can pick, because if you're picking Mordekaiser into a team with a lot of mobility, so like let's say a situation like this where you're here, all right, and any person that you want to take is here. Let's say this person is a Talon. Where's the other options? Enemy dummy. I keep forgetting the shortcut for this. Okay, enemy dummy. What's that like dummy? Shift dummy. Okay, shift B here. Why is this not working? Shift B here. What? Spawn enemy dummy. Can I not spawn enemy? Oh, I can only spawn in them in a location that I'm looking at. Oh! I did spawn them. They were just all there. Okay, so let's imagine that you have any number of people here. So like, let's say this is an ADC with no flash. You alt, easy peasy, right? Let's say this is a Talon and you try to alt. Well, he's just gonna go over the wall, and then you're not gonna have a fun time. So if the enemy team is like Talon, Silas, Nidalee, Riven, be very careful about picking Mordekaiser, because you might just get stuck in situations here, fighting for objectives here. Like let's say you're chasing somebody here, you can't just press R. But like this choke point, this narrow choke point where people can't run away from you, it's this free opportunity to press R and kill somebody. So if that opportunity has been taken from you because the champion that the enemy team is, the champion that is on the enemy team is capable of escaping and just going back and forth between these two spots very effectively, consider picking not Mordekaiser. How much mobility on the enemy team is too much mobility for Mordekaiser to deal with is a question that you have to ask yourself. How much mobility are you comfortable with facing? But it is something that you have to keep in mind. So let's actually go ahead and level up all of our levels and add a bunch of gold, because I want to show off a couple of different builds to deal with situations that are. So we talked about Chemtank and we talked about Frostfire and Riftmaker last time. What we didn't talk about was Turbo Chemtank and Sunfire Aegis, so we'll talk about that just now. When do you want Chemtank? Well, you have an enemy here. Let's say this is an Orianna in the mid lane, okay? So you walk up to this Orianna, right? So you walk up to this Orianna, you want to ulti. What's going to happen? She's going to start walking away from you. She's going to use her movement speed from her W, Dissonance. What do? You ghost, try and catch her. And then you press R, and then what happens? She shockwaves you. You're here, she's here. 2 to 3 seconds of your ulti is already gone, and you haven't landed a blow on her yet. Then what you can do is you can say, well, you're here, I'm here, I need to get to you. Activate Chemtank. You already have the ghost, so let's refresh the cooldowns. So again, we're ghosting in. We're running out of ghost, so we've used half of our ghost just to get to her. We land the max range ulti. She's here. Here, if you just try to throw out your E, there's a good chance that that doesn't hit if the target is moving, right? So what do? Well, you're ghosted, you're going to lose out on your ghost, and now you really need to catch up to her. Chemtank. See how fast this makes you. And look at the damage that Chemtank deals. Your next basic attack deals 160. This scales with level, your HP, and your move speed. So Ghost and Chemtank taken together actually give you a massive amount of burst. So unlike Frostfire, this doesn't give you 100 HP with each item, which is worse for your demonic. However, it still gives you 50 health, which is not nothing, and it gives you 5 ability haste. Getting ability haste on each mythic is so powerful. Mordekaiser adores ability haste. So you're building chem tank when you need to stay on top of your targets and deal damage, because while Frostfire helps you stay on top of your targets when dealing damage, chem tank makes sure that you can get to them. And that's something that you won't always be able to do without chem tank. So when you need two different options of getting to them, consider chem tank. The flip side of this, of course, is proto build, but you don't. But there are games where you're going to fall behind, or you want to keep building tank and you don't want to build proto build. Chem tank is your item. It is quite powerful. Also, let's read this. Moving and taking damage. So make sure that you're constantly moving. Dealing damage no longer fills up the chem tank. So just move, okay? Just move and move and move. Use your passive movement speed to keep moving. So once you're moving, just keep moving and make sure that you're refreshing your passive. That way you fill up your chem tank faster. See? Of course, this is going to fill up much faster in real game because the dummies are actually going to hit you. Okay, now let's take a look at this rune, Grasp of the Undying. What did I do? I used Grasp of the Undying 3 times so far. It has dealt 295 damage and healed you for 140. Admittedly, this is because I am level 18. I have a large amount of HP, but this HP is like just 2470. It's not even that amount of HP. Like, in a regular game, by the time you're like level 13 or whatever, or level 11 even, you're looking like with Demonic Embrace, Chem Tank, and like Ruby Crystal or Kindle Gem, you are easily looking at this amount of HP at 15 to 25 minutes into the game, depending on how ahead or behind you are. So let's take a look. Hit him. Also, this is when you enter combat. So this, it doesn't require you to, so now hit. Look! That one hit brought us to 414. And you can keep going. 533. Stay in combat. 3, 4, 652. You are dealing 100 extra damage with each auto and healing for about 50 extra damage. Since you're going to be building tank, it's really helpful to have something that scales with your max HP and deals quick, ready damage. So let's say the Orianna example. You've ghosted. You're taking damage. You haven't gotten. You would have stacked Conqueror. You're currently shockwaved. Now you stack Chem Tank. You get to them. Grasp is ready to go because you're being hit by the Orianna. Chem Tank isn't. Chem Tank lets you get to them and then immediately land your Grasp because you've taken damage. So you land your Grasp, instantly get your burst damage, instantly get your healing. If you're into a team that's mono squishies, you're not going to have time to stack up Conqueror. If you're into a team that looks to dance around you and kite around you, like let's say it's a bunch of immobile squishies and then they've got like Nidalee. You're not going to be allowed to fully stack your Conqueror against a Nidalee, nor keep it stacked. Grasp doesn't require that you keep hitting them. Grasp only requires that you stay in combat. Much easier to trigger against squishies, highly recommended. So now you might be asking, well, isn't Grasp bad on jungle champs? I always thought this was troll on jungle champions. Well, the thing is, let's read this, okay? Every 4 seconds in combat, what will your next basic attack do? It will deal bonus magic damage, build 4% of your health, heal you for 2%, that's pretty cool. Permanently increase your health by 5. This is the part for which people think Grasp is bad in the jungle, but it's really not. Like this is, if you're in lane, you get to use this all the time. Sure, yes, that's a thing you get to do. But even if you're in a very aggressive lane where just over the course of laning phase, you are going to proc Grasp 30 times, let's say, just in laning phase, okay? 30 times 5, that's 150 that you would have gotten. In the jungle, from ganking and from fighting people, you're gonna proc Grasp like 10 times over that same period of time max, right? So there you're getting 50 HP. So you're losing out essentially on 100 HP, 100 permanent HP, which is sad. But recognize that people with Grasp don't always get to proc it as often in lane. 30 is a very exaggerated number. And secondly, people with Grasp can still teamfight just fine. And your 1v1s are still just fine. And it's still doing better than Conqueror. And if you're playing aggressively, if you're constantly in combat, if you're constantly fighting the enemy jungler, then this is not actually even any worse than having Grasp in lane because you're actually using it all the time. So Grasp is very powerful for short, bursty trades, which will happen when you're up into squishies. Now, whether or not the champions you're facing up against will require you to have squishies, you'll classify them as squishies or skirmishers, obviously depends on the exact scenario, but keep in mind that Grasp is a perfectly viable option and one that you should absolutely 100% of the time consider when deciding your rune choices. Okay. The other alternative is Phase Rush. With Phase Rush, what you want isn't, like, Chem Tank lets you get to people, Phase Rush lets you stay on people, but I would caution about using Phase Rush, because if you use Phase Rush, you have to give up either Triumph and Tenacity, or you have to give up Revitalize. Revitalize is such a massively important part of your tankiness because of the double dipping you get. Like, look, each time I use this shield, so I'm not really dealing much damage here. So let's actually head over here to this Rift Herald where we can deal damage, okay? So currently I have 5% heal and shield power, so 53 bonus healing, 30 bonus shielding. Now, my shield is fully stacked. Look, each time I'm activating W, this is going up by 25. That is to say, over the course of a regular game, imagine how many times you're going to activate W. Each time, you're getting 20 to 25 bonus shielding. On average, Revitalize will heal you and shield you for about 1,000 each. So you're going to get about 2,000 more effective HP from Revitalize. That is a lot of tankiness you're giving up if you choose to not go with Resolve. And if you choose to give up Triumph and Tenacity, I don't even need to explain why that's difficult. Those are among the best sub-runes in the game. So if you really think you absolutely need the Phase Rush to stick on top of people, without the Phase Rush you will not be able to stay on top of them. Just recognize the hit that's going to deal to your damage and play accordingly. You're going to be slightly less tanky and you're going to deal slightly less damage. You're going to trade that combat power for sticking potential. It's viable, but be very careful. It's very situational. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Sunfire Aegis. So let's sell this Chem Tank here. Aegis. Sunfire Aegis. How much damage does Sunfire Aegis deal? So I'm here. I'm just gonna keep hitting, and just watch this. Okay, just watch this number. Just watch this number. Just watch this number. Just watch this number. Immolate is insane. Sunfire is much more expensive than either of the other Balmy Cinder items, but that's because it makes you so much tankier and lets you deal so much more damage. So if you don't need the slow from Frostfire, or if you're planning to build a Rylai's, and you just really want to be super tanky, or you need the tenacity and slow resist that Sunfire gives you, or you're just going to be the ultimate frontliner who's going to like sit in the middle of two people and just absorb up a whole bunch of damage with W and just keep hitting people, Sunfire is your item. In terms of purely the amount of damage you get for existing, this is on par with Demonic Embrace. And when you're surrounded by multiple people and they're both taking Sunfire Aegis damage and Demonic Embrace burn, no matter how far behind you were, that fight, you're going to dish out such a massive quantity of damage. Like, look at how silly this is. So we've got these three people here, okay? You are essentially dealing thousands of damages off of your items alone every few seconds. That's insane. That's absolutely bonkers. So definitely consider. So obviously this is like a little, maybe like, well, you're level 18, that's what's dealing so much. Well, actually it's only dealing 39. Like, oftentimes in game, you will get to 39 in the mid game. Like, I only have 2 items. If you had like 3 items, 4 items, then this is very common, even before you hit level 18. So even if you're dealing, I don't know, instead of dealing 1,000 damage a second, if you're dealing like 500 bonus damage a second to all enemies around you, that's still not bad. So depending on whether you need to chase people down, stay on top of people, or just soak up a bunch of damage and keep hitting people in an extended fight, make sure that you use Sunfire Aegis. This is an option that you should consider, just like Face Rush and Grasp of the Undying. Now, Night Harvester is in theory something that you could go for, but it doesn't help you stick on top of people until you're already on top of them. And at that point, I'm not super worried, right? Like, if you're already on top of them, then I'm less worried about staying on top. Besides, if you're worried about staying on top of a person after you've already reached them, either get a Rise or Cosmic Drive. Don't waste a Mythic slot on it. So I wouldn't go Night Harvester. We've already discussed Protobelt and Riftmaker in the previous video. So, watch out for QSS. Watch out for champions with abilities that let them cleanse suppressions. Olaf W, Rengar W, and so on. Watch out for Veins. Unplayable matchup. Fiora is difficult as well, but it's in theory playable. Master Yi is doable, but it is a skill check. So Yi alpha strikes you, disappears. He's going to appear behind you. You have to time it perfectly so that he takes the Q hit just as he comes up. Then absorb up the next wave of his damage with your W, because after he deals Q and auto attacks, your W's bar is going to be full, so you use W to blow it up. And then in that situation, make sure you're hitting him. Red Smite is obviously good, but it's not as good against you as it might have been against other champions, because Orsi deals true damage, which cannot be reduced. But at the same time, what you can also do is use your E to pull him out of his meditate, and then if you can time it so that you hit him with another Q, you'll actually be able to outdo him, especially if you have a Bramble Vest or a Thornmail completed Lasagnas to avoid critical damage and to make sure that he doesn't get as much healing as he might otherwise get. So you can dual master Yi. Fiora is obviously tougher, but again, if you can kite it out, then maybe, but it still feels pretty bad. And Vayne is just unplayable. But right now, because Rengar is OP, better to ban Rengar than Vayne. Vayne, after all, is an ADC, and ADCs, you don't have to be able to 1v1 them if you just like pen her towards a certain area, shepherd her towards a certain area, or just like act as a frontliner that she needs to take a good amount of time to kill. That might allow the rest of your team to just win the game anyways. So there is counterplay, but these are some champions that are just not fun to play against. You should absolutely keep in mind, others you'll regret it. Okay, when do you know if you should be building Zhonya's or other armor items? Well, sometimes the best possible defense is just invulnerability. Like, there's only so much you can itemize against a team that's going to deal a bunch of burst damage. No matter how much tank stats you have, you're going to take burst damage. Zhonya's will help you survive the critical few seconds necessary for your W to come back up. Build Zhonya's in those cases. You only don't need a Zhonya's when you know for sure that you're never going to get bursted down, and the damage that they're going to deal, you can tank it up / heal it up. So oftentimes if you're Riftmaker, because you know you can keep healing back up, even though it's very good with Zhonya's, for the exact reason I just mentioned, you might not need Zhonya's. You might not need a Zhonya's. Oh, so sorry about the ringtone. So in those situations, you might not need a Zhonya's, because you're planning to just stay and tank it all up with your Randuins and your Bramble and your Spirit Visage, or maybe you have a Gargoyle Stoneplate. But in games where invulnerability is the only real way to avoid dying, I really love the combination of Gargoyle Stoneplate with Zhonya's, because it makes it so that you can buy so much time. You survive with your W, then use your Zhonya's, then you use your Stoneplate, then you use your W again. It doesn't feel fair, and it lets you survive for so long in the middle of the entire enemy team that you deal a good amount of damage and you let the rest of your team follow through. It's very powerful survivability tools. Just remember, sometimes invulnerability is the only way to survive. In those cases, go Zhonya's. And also go Zhonya's against burst damage. So again, itemize carefully and recognize that this Mordekaiser right here, has a lot more build diversity than people originally expected. Now all that remains is for us to get some better non-Magic Mantle AP items. Life would be complete. If you think I still missed anything in this Mordekaiser guide regarding his rune choices, regarding his itemizations, regarding basic combos, I know we didn't really do a basic combos, but you don't really need to show you that. There's like people who can show you that much better. Throw out your E wherever. So wherever you throw out your E, it comes out in a circle around you, and the direction it goes is fixed. You don't have to choose the direction, right? You just say, at this point, if you throw it out, then it will go perfectly backwards to your original location. So if I throw it out here, it's going to go back to my original location. If I throw it out here, it's going to pull it back. If I throw it out here, it's going to pull it towards me. If I throw it in front of you, so throw it in the direction you're facing to pull people away from you. Throw it in the direction you're facing to pull people towards you. And when you're walking away, throw it in that direction to pull people away from you. Direction you're walking to, pull them to. Direction you're walking away from, pull them away. So take a look at this red buff. Pull red buff to, pull red buff away. Pull red buff to, pull red buff away. Pull red buff to, pull red buff away. So learning to naturally position your E is a very important part of playing this champion, because you might need to peel instantly. Again, I'm not dragging, I'm just locating this. I know that this is my range. Also, if you cast it at max range, he's just going to cast it at max range. You don't always want to cast it at max range. For example, you have an enemy dummy here. You cast it at max range, might give him time to escape. It goes far. Point it at him, far less chance of escaping. He's right beside you. Point it immediately at him. The cast time is fixed, unfortunately, but you can play around it to make sure that the enemy is going to be there. So, for example, let's say you are here. Enemy's in this choke. So, he doesn't really have a place to go. Like, if you're chasing him here, he has to go here or he has to go here. Can't walk forward. Like, he doesn't have infinite juice. There's only two pathways. Throw E here, Q there. No matter which direction he goes, he's going to get hit by one. If you want to make sure you hit the E, throw out your Q first, then throw out your E in the other direction once he jukes. If you want to hit your E, if you want to hit your Q, that's the one that deals damage and will kill him. Just throw out your E, and then Q after the juke. In your death roam, if you lose both your E and your Q, you lose so much of your kill threat. Try and land at least one of your abilities. It significantly increases your kill threat. Also, missing abilities really hurts, because sometimes they'll get away with very little HP, and that will come back to cost you a fight and possibly even a game. So please make sure you're not haphazardly throwing out your abilities, that you're throwing out your abilities in a way that makes it very difficult for the enemy to juke them. So that's all I had here for today. If there's any particular aspects I've missed that are not covered in my videos, that are not covered in the gameplays, that you haven't seen me or heard me talk about so far in these two videos, please let me know, and I'll do my best to make amends for that error as soon as possible. Until next time, have a wonderful day, peace, and I hope that all of this info is enough to bring you to gold, like I did. It's very doable. It's doable with picks you like. As long as the jungle clear is decent, / the ganks and skirmishing is decent, you can make many different champions work, just with the fundamentals and dedication to the champ.